It's fantastic to play with Dybala. He always creates danger for you. You see his movements, and he just opens up the right spaces for me. I feel like it's a blessing if I think about the fact that I get to play alongside him. That's a pretty beautiful way to talk about your teammate. They understand each other. I remember the first game that they played together, we said, oh my, are these guys best friends? They just, great players, understand where they want to be. Malen plays with a smile on his face. Dybala does the same thing. So to have this chemistry already from the first game, but then to talk about your teammate the way that we're seeing after the game is beautiful. I feel lucky that we get to watch them together because they're what football's about. That idea, the creation. I know people want to laugh at Dybala. They want to laugh, oh, he gets injured. But when you watch the purity that he plays with, the football, when he's healthy, he's one of the best players. I've always said it. If he's healthy, he's the best player in Serie A. Unfortunately,
you would still say that?
With the ball at his feet? With the ball at his feet, it's hard to argue that Dybala is not.
He glides, right? I mean, look, you almost forget about Dybala because Messi with Argentina, but I still think that Dybala would have been that guy maybe for Argentina had Messi come 30 years earlier or 30 years later, right? Because he is so good with the ball and his movement, right? When he finds those pockets, those soft pockets to receive, and then he has the ability to not only pass, but he has the ability to dribble that you saw in the first goal, in the third goal, and he always has his head up, and he's got a shot from range as well. He took one in the beginning of the game that obviously makes a good save, De Gea on his left side. But again, he is a playmaker, and that's what Malen's talking about when he says it's a blessing to play with him, because if you're a forward, and Malen isn't the type of forward that you're going to feed him like you did in the second goal, and he's just going to create on his own every single time. He needs other guys to create moments and spaces for him, and Dybala is a magnet, not only for the ball, for defenders. And when Dybala gets the ball and draws all the defenders, Malen's always going to find that space, and they work really well together, and they enjoy playing with one another, and they complement each other really well.
I always remember Jose Mourinho said there's a Roma with Dybala and there's a Roma without Dybala. That's how important he is to the system, and I think I just love the way that he's embraced Rome as well. After everything he went through at Juventus, it was not easy for him to leave Juventus. He had tears in his eyes. It was not a place that he wanted to move on from. And Rome is a place that embraces you. If you remember when he arrived, what they did for him, the piazza just full of thousands of Roma fans. Before he even kicked the ball, they loved Paulo Dybala. And he has always said, we had the chance to interview him not long ago here on CBS. He said, my dream is to give something back to these Roma fans. My dream is to win a trophy. They went all the way in the Europa League. They lost to Sevilla in the final. They were not able to do it. And I think that he's still got that chip on his shoulder. That's why he stayed. That's why he didn't go to Saudi Arabia. That's why he wanted to stay at Roma. That's why he took a 70% salary reduction, is because of the love that he has for his fans, and probably because he knows, hey, if I get the ball to Malen, he's going to get me a lot more assists. So just beautiful to see.
Well, and it's also amazing considering, you mentioned that salary reduction. It's also any other fan base probably gets mad at the fact that he misses some games. But I think you mentioned that other fan bases can make fun of it. It is almost also, really, if you love the sport and you love watching great players, you savor the moments that he is on the pitch because it's beautiful to watch. That said, though, I was screaming at 3-0 at the TV, sub him off! Sub him off! Whenever the game is done, get him off so we can save the moments and the minutes played for key moments. How much does a start play into how a team thinks of itself?
I think it very much, it's a big part of that because the coach is always the one, and I'm putting my coach's hat on here, the coach is always the one that's providing the idea of what the team's going to play like or what he hopes the team plays like, and he tries to get the players to kind of see his vision. This is proof of concept, right? Where there it is, the defensive ability to keep a shutout, give up very few opportunities, only a couple on the back end of the game when the game was done and dusted, and the ability to create with passing out of the back, finding Dybala in pockets, Rodrigo Mora, then having the wing backs coming through, obviously Malen's movement through the middle of the field, and then you let your playmakers make the plays, which is what happened today, right? Dybala creates the first goal, Malen with a nifty finish. Same thing on the third goal where Dybala gets through on the right side and gives Malen the third one. And so it's really good to see, and I think the players are enjoying it.
To that point, it also is the proof of concept that Gasperini could go back and say he still wants one more player. He still wants one more attacking player. He talked in the transfer market. He said, yes, we did well. We got certain players, but we're still missing something. I think he could go back and say, did you see how well we did today? If you give me one more piece in the attack is what he's been asking for. He wants a winger that's fast, that could run in behind, somebody to replace Sule, who's probably going to be going out the door. This is the perfect way to prove it. And you mentioned that Ranieri had to go. He got Tony D'Amico. Tony D'Amico is who helped build up Atalanta. So the fact that they're recreating this at Rome, it's beautiful to watch for all of us.
But Marco, couldn't the response from the Roma hierarchy be, well, what do you need? You won 4-0. What more does this team need? They look fantastic.
I mean, look, I'll say this, and I know we talked about the young Italian playing as the right wing back. One, I think Wesley can play both on the left and the right, and I think he's better on the right, especially with a player like Paulo Dybala in that pocket. So now he has the ability to find Malen like he did, or the overlapping run from a Wesley. But can you find somebody else to kind of do that as well? Is it Luli, or is it someone else that maybe hasn't played?
Molina
potentially could play on the right side. So I think
would be slow coming back from the World Cup, went all the way to the final with Argentina.
I think Chris. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that would just be a very interesting vision to see an overlapping wingback coming through with Dybala with the ball at his feet, because then he has multiple options of what he can do.
I think it's also being aware that Dybala is probably not going to be able to be held. I mean, he looked amazing today. Dybala looked fantastic. But if we know the history of Dybala, I think you can't put all your eggs in one basket, Chris. If you're talking about competing in Champions League, which is going to be very demanding, an extra 8 games at least, right? And you think that they'll go a little bit further. And again, it's just the characteristic. He keeps talking about a winger that could run in behind, that has that speed, that has that pace. So I think he could say to them, look how well we are right now. We could be even better. We could compete and go further. And again, we keep trying to figure out who's going to be the anti-Inter, who's going to be the team that could fight for the Scudetto. They proved today that they have the pieces. Now, you have to be consistent over 38 games. Roma has not won the Scudetto in too long. But man, Gasperini's putting together a machine.
And you look at the results here, not a lot of draws in Serie A in the opening weekend. We had Udinese and Como playing out the 1-1, but Inter, lopsided victors over Monza. Napoli get the 2 late goals to beat Genoa by 2-0. Juve getting the lone goal to beat Frosinone. Atalanta, perhaps against the run of play, beating Sassuolo. Milan getting their debut victory under Ruben Amorim over Torino, and then Lazio and Roma, we saw today, get the victories. But we want to talk a little bit more about what Roma did in this one. And Marco, we were talking about the best performances of the weekend. You'd probably say that Roma would top the table, not just in terms of the actual table by goal differential over everybody else, but in terms of what they did with their performance in this one. How impressed are you with what you saw from this Roma team?
I guess you could think of it like if you had to do a power ranking of whoever impressed us the most in the first round. I think Roma has to be there for the quality of opponent that they played, but also the quality that they showed on the pitch and the attacking threats that they have. Again, how are teams going to stop a player that has the confidence of Donyell Malen, that has the creativity of Paulo Dybala, that has Rodrigo Mora, who's going to continue to grow, who has players like Castro that could come in off the bench, and who has the buy-in of the entire team. The attitude that I've seen from every single player to do exactly what Gianpiero Gasperini wants is what's most impressive to me. They are 1,000% behind the manager. There's no questions. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I think last year, there were the question marks when we came in. Oh, are they going to listen to Gasperini? Can he do it at this level? Can he transfer that philosophy and bring it to Rome? We're not there anymore. Now it's taking it to the next level. It's year one. They overexceeded expectations by getting Champions League football just because they missed out on that competition for so long. Now it's taking it to that next gear and that next level. And I'm not so sure how many teams have the attacking threats that this Roma team does. Juventus don't. Juventus, what does Juventus have? What strikers, what attacking players does Juventus have? We have Yildiz that's gone down. Inter certainly does. Still question marks around Napoli with Rasmus Højlund. Does he convince you as the striker? Milan spent a lot on Gonzalo Ramos, but he hasn't proven it yet. He's only played 1 game. Like, you start going down the list. Como still has Duvikas as their center forward. So when you look at the strikers in Italy, you have to say that Roma is up there with Inter as the best strikers. And the rest, there's probably a gap between the other after the top 2, there's a gap between the rest.
It was demonstrated by the fact that Malen comes into the league for half a season and is second in the league in goal scoring. It goes to show that there are some teams that are really struggling to figure this out, but also struggle to put an infrastructure around the center forward. I think that's where we have to talk about Paulo Dybala and what he did in this game, not just in terms of this game having the hat trick of assists, but also over the course of going back to last season, it's 5 straight goals that Malen has scored that were assisted by Paulo Dybala. It's an incredible amount of creativity that they have around him, and they have a system that puts Malen in the best places to succeed.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable to be a forward and know that there is a number 10 type of player in Dybala that wants to get you the ball in those moments. You're more willing to make those runs. You're more willing to sacrifice your body in those moments. And he's getting on the end of things. And so that's great to see. And just to touch a little bit on what Marco said about Roma, I think Roma not only showed last year, and with Gasperini specifically, how they could find ways to win without what was his MO, right? His MO is great attacking presence, good players up top, getting a lot of goals like he showed with Atalanta. He didn't have that last year, but he still managed to find, a way to win. And now he not only has that, but in the first game of the season, he's shown that he can get goals out of this group. So for me, the biggest question for Roma in terms of whether they can compete, not only to be in that 2-6 spot that we talked about, but maybe push a little bit for Inter Milan, is can they stay fit? Can they stay healthy? Can Dybala play more games? Can Malen continue to get the goals from Dybala's assists and maybe some other guys chipping in there? So I think that'll be the biggest question, but I see a lot of potential in that squad.
Hey, you look at the last 2 years for Dybala, averaging about 23 appearances in Serie A per season and about 1,400 minutes. So if you want to go on to win the Scudetto, you're going to need probably a lot more from him or some other kind of option.